Sorry about that. I just hit the button on the iPad and turned myself off. So sorry, people. It should be back on now. This looks a bit dark to me. Does it look dark? Oh yeah, you'll see the colours as I'm using them. Let me just check we're all on again. Right, okay, I can see myself again. Apologies for that. I was moving the camera. So, as I said, I'm going to start with the darks. And what I've got here, when I talk about the warms and cools, these are both the same value, so they're just as dark as each other, but this is cool because it's more towards the blue side, and this is warm because it's more towards red. So when you put them together, because the warm colours will look like they're coming forward, it's just an optical illusion with real pigment, and the cooler colours look like they're receding, it gives you an impression of depth in the foreground, or wherever you put it, to be honest. So you need quite a lot of pastel, pan pastel, on your sponge. You need to be quite heavy-handed putting it on, but then when you blend it, you want to be much gentler so you don't wipe it all off. And I'm trying just to sweep in the general direction of the paper. I'm going to use some stick pastels in here so you can see how you can just do exactly the same with your stick pastels. And you can use these pan pastel things. They're quite expensive, but they do last for a long time and they do work really well. I like having the control over them. But equally, you can use little eyeshadow sponge applicators. And likewise, I'm going to do the same up top. This is slightly different to that colour. It's a little bit kind of lighter. This is a lighter mauve as well. You can see how that just gives the effect of some light coming through. Now with pan pastels as well, you can mix them together, and you can literally just mix them by doing this. They're very robust. So you can just dip your sponge in, and if you want a lighter one, you mix them on the paper, on the sponge. Mix them in the pan. Obviously, you've got to be a bit more careful if you've got you're mixing your lights and darks. I'm going in with some of that dark blue, but because it's this up the top, I want it a bit lighter, so I'm going to add this one in. And I might decide I don't like that, but I'm going to paint over all of this with stick pastels, so it doesn't really matter. That's bits of my sponge falling off, I think. Let's get a fresher one. You've got these little wedgy ones as well. For this, it doesn't really matter if what shape you're using. I want some movement in my sky. And as it comes down, I want it a little bit, well, I want some warmth in it as well. So there's this bright blue. If I mix that with the lighter one, I get more of a sky colour. as we're coming down towards the horizon. I don't know if you haven't already got pan pastels. The great thing about them is that they do all stack, and then you have a little lid that goes on top. So I just keep mine in big columns. I did invest in the whole set, and obviously these are the colours I use the most. But if you do a lot of landscapes, they have some lovely landscape colours. Just having a slurp of tea, sorry. Right, so bring these down again. Now I'm going to put my horizon in, and I nearly always get it wonky, so I am going to put it in with a ruler just as a guidance today, and I think some of you saw this in one of the other workshops. It's quite useful. Move that over. And I want, do I want more sky? Do I want more sea? I'm going to go for more sky. Now, is that straight? See, it's almost centre, isn't it? That's what I'm always saying. Let's go down a little bit further. And that's just my guide. So back to my pan pastels. You can use these little ones as well. I'm just going to mix up as I go. But this is quite a big piece of paper, so in actual fact for me it's better to use the bigger ones. I'm mixing them up as I go. Now I want to start introducing some lighter colour down towards the horizon, but I don't want to end up with green. So I am going to use a very gentle yellow across here. This is like my background. I'm going to bring it all the way down to the horizon. And it will come over the other side as well. And I said that the reflection on the other side is darker, but we'll sort that out with the stick pastels as we go. And I want some warmth in there. So I'm going to go in with a bit of stick pastel. And I've got, I've got a cloth to clean my pastels as I go, because it's so easy. I try and keep them in a little tray so I don't knock them off the table, and they just make each other so dirty. So look, this is filthy. So I've got a little, this is like a microfiber cloth. I find them really useful. In fact, if I have workshops here, I just have I have an old duvet on the table, and you can just wipe them off on the fabric. So I'm just going in with some of this top and bottom. And as usual, we just want to build the layers up very gently. So as we go, you'll still have paper showing through, and that's one of the reasons I like using the darker paper for these, because it's easier for me to tell when it's all covered. And when it's still looking a bit grey, I know I haven't got enough pastel on, so I can continue to build up a bit. Now, I've got to put some colour in down here, and it's quite dark down here. So I'm coming back in with this really dark purple, because I can always lighten it up. It's much easier to lighten things than darken things in pastel. But I quite like the way that looks like. There's a bit of light on this dark water. I'm going to move these out of the way. And I just wipe these sponges off to clean them on the cloth. Now, it's very little colour on there. So I'm going to go back up to my sky. And this is a very, very dark blue, but I'm going to go over it with a bit of this. It's a real ultramarine, I think. Don't worry about that, that will go. Going back to my dark mauve because I can see the paper through it. Some of the dark blue. And I'm trying, you can probably see I'm trying, and because it's like it in the picture as well, I'm trying not to get stripes. I want to get some movement, but I don't want them to look regimented. There's some softer blues in there, so I'm now going to start coming in with my actual pastels sticks. And that's going to join that more orange. So this is a lovely blue actually. You may not have all of the colours that you need, but the whole thing about these pick paintings and tutorials is I think it's practically impossible to tell what colours you need until you're actually painting, because it's not until you lay them down next to each other you can decide what you want. So I try not to get people to slavishly copy what I'm doing. I'd rather you picked up the colours that you have and decide you'd like something a bit more mauve or a bit more blue. So look, you can see now that I've got enough pastel on the paper that this is beginning to blend itself. I want some of this darker blue, which is a bit more similar to that up in the sky. It's quite green, it's quite tealy, but when you put it over this warm mauve, it looks like there's light. And to be honest, I'm not paying that much attention to the reference now. And I've said before that when you blend, you do lose the luminosity of the colour, but I'm not bothered about that at this stage because my luminosity is going to come from my top layers. I want to bring that a little more together because I've got the mauvey blue here, and that's a very blue. So let's go back in with a little bit of that. So there's not such a distinct difference. There we are. I think that's a bit better. So it just looks like little wispy bits of cloud and air. And what do we have over here? It's quite grey over here. Let's see if this colour can come in yet. That's quite a nice colour, but I think that's more for my cloud, so I still want to get some background colour in here. So I'm going to go back to this very light one, because if you look through the clouds, the sky behind, because it's dawn, it's got this light creeping through. And as you know, if I put too much on or don't like it, I can go over it and clean my sponge off again. Right, I'm just going to have a break and see if there are any questions. Just smooth that out a bit more. You can see there's still quite a lot of texture in there because there isn't that much colour on the paper yet. There's not much pastel on the paper yet. So I need to build this up a bit more. And don't forget, I'm not going to put detail in this part, so it doesn't really matter how much pastel I have on here. So I'm pushing this really quite hard into the paper, really quite hard, and then I want to bring that mauve over a bit. It is just all down to what you like the look of. What do you want your sky to be like? Could be completely different to mine. So I'm just going to check and see if anyone's posted any questions. Oh, got to turn my sound off on this. Right. Okay, no questions. I don't think anyone's painting along actually, but that's fine. That's the nice thing about these tutorials. You can watch them a bit later. Now, I want some more light still down here. I might try this. This is a real pale minty green, but it gives a lovely effect of light. And if you haven't got it in pan pastel, just find a stick that's a similar colour. I think I've got more blues than anything, but I think that's because I do a lot of water and seascapes. So that's just looking like there's a bit of light coming through the clouds. And then as I come down, it gets more lemony. And the warmer colours are all right down towards the horizon. So you can see how that's allowed me to transition from a blue to a yellow without getting any green in the way. So that's something you need to be sort of fairly conscious of. And there's some warmth up here. And as you come down here, can you see how it goes from lemon to a darker lemon to an amber, an orange, and then a red? So my darker orange, I might go for something a bit more coral that I didn't have put on your list, but forgive me. So what I have now, clean it off, is I have these three now that are going to kind of gradiate. And with my lemons, I've got similar. So I've got that one, that one, and that one. And it just allows for a transition between the lighter colours and the darker colours. So I'm not going to have this all the way. Can you see my paper still showing through though? So I'm going to need to put some more actual colour on there. So now I'm beginning to be a little bit heavier handed. And I am probably going to blend this once more to get rid of that texture, and then eventually I will go on with the clouds and things over the top. So we're not trying to paint all the clouds at this stage, we're painting the sky behind. Right, we are getting there, I do believe, but there is still room for some brighter stuff. So I've got this really, really tiny mint green, which is a bit like the pan pastel I had, and I don't know if that was or wasn't on your list, so I apologise if it wasn't, but look how beautifully it puts a little bit of light through that area. A bit more of this. I don't think I want it all the way over, but I'm going to come in with some grey clouds on this side once I'm happy with this. And I want this to look like it's all colour because I can still see the grey of the paper through it. So I'm going to carry on building it up. Mid-orange one. I'm going to take it all the way across because I'm going to put some grey on there and the darker orange. That kind of is only on this side. Yeah, I'm going to use my fingers now because there's enough pastel on there. I'm pushing quite hard though because I want to get rid of the texture of the pastel. I want it to look really smooth. That's why these are so good for skin tones. Right, so I think we have that. Now I'm going to paint from this down and then put all this in afterwards. Just checking again if there's any questions. Oh, Dorothy was trying to paint along, but she stopped now. Okay, that's cool. So I want this colour under here. In fact, no, I'm going to start with a lighter one and work up a bit. But because it reflects darker down here, I'm actually starting with the middle yellow, not the lightest. But we're doing pretty much the same as we did on top. And that doesn't go all the way over. There are elements of it down here. And I am going to use my sponge for this one because this is going to have a couple of teeny weeny boats on it, so I need the tooth in the paper. It's still looking a bit grey. I'm just mixing them on the paper now to create a darker reflection. Just layering. That's it. And now I can go in with my finger and I've got some nice pure colour there. So don't forget also, when you're looking into the distance, you won't see any of the detail of the waves. You've got a little bit in middle. They would be much bigger down here, but you can't actually see them because it's so dark. So don't try and put your, wavy lines in the background. As that comes down, that gets lighter. And as it comes over here, it's beginning to get quite grey. This is a lovely purpley grey. Got some bits. I'm going to go in with my sponge this time. With my grey. I think I can actually go a little bit darker than that, so what I'm going to do is use some of this pan pastel dark purple up here. Yes, I quite like that. Or another colour you can use is a warm grey. If I have one to hand. Or even a fairly cool grey. Actually, this is quite a steely grey. But when you use it over this part of the water, again, it begins to look like you've got some light coming through. I'm going to start to go back up with this dark water. And this time I'm going to go in with sticks rather than the pan pastels, because the trouble is you can begin to just brush all the colour off that you've put on. So I want to make this even darker. And I'm using quite big movements because you'd have the waves here. I don't think you can actually see it. It's covered in dust. I don't think you can actually see it in the picture. But these would be quite large movements of water down here. I've got a really dark mauve. And then I'm going to bring some of this, I think this might be too light at this stage, but let's have a look. Yeah, I think that's too light. So I'm coming in with this blue that we used in the sky. Don't know if I like it. Let's have a look and see. Quite like the way it makes the water look like it's lit up. And I am going to blend with this. Okay, I think we're getting there. Now I'm going to put my horizon in so that I've got something to reference, if that makes sense. And my horizon is just going to be, there's actually, if you look, there's actually really quite a sharp, I don't like to use black, but something very, very dark, a sharp line. Then behind that are lovely mauvey clouds that get lighter as they get higher. So for my horizon, I'm going to use a really, really dark purple. I'm not going to worry too much about it being absolutely, part of it needs, the middle of it needs to be straight. Right. There we are. You can see that just gives the effect of it fading out behind. And in actual fact, I like this really warm grey. It's a really warm mauvey colour. I think it's called mouse grey or something. It's actually quite a hard colour to find. It's probably not even in my grey box. I'm actually going to try this, which is it's quite a light purple, but I quite like it, look. And because it's next to the orange, well, strictly speaking, it's complementary as yellow, but it goes well with the orange because blue is the complementary of orange. So that kind of looks quite aesthetically pleasing, I think. Now I need more. I still haven't got much colour on the paper down here. So I'm going to actually use that colour again, that really lovely purpley. And I think that's probably too much. Let's blend it in. Oh, I don't know, once you've blended it, graze it out. That's quite nice and warm, isn't it, actually? And then if you can see, this light comes all the way over. I want to leave some of that kind of untouched. So I'll blend it as it goes a bit further out. I want it down here to look a bit more like sparkles. There we are. That saves me having to try and put these lines in. I will put some in later. That here's looking a bit grubby, so we'll be going back in over that shortly. Again, there doesn't feel like there's enough depth to this water down here. So I'm going to go back in with these really darks. This is the dark blue, that's better. I'm not going to worry at the moment about merging them. I'm just going to make sure I've got colour on my paper. That you can't actually see that colour in there, but I just like it. And of course, when you blend it out, you do lose some of the colour anyway. That's still almost bare paper, but it is the colour I want, but I'd rather paint it in than just leave bare paper. So I'm going in with this grey. And I'm conscious all the time that where that boat is going to be, you want that slick of light behind it, because that's what draws the eye, where the darkest darks against the lightest lights, and this little trio pulls the eye to the horizon. So I want to make sure I've got some light behind there, but that I've got enough tooth in the paper to put my boat in. Otherwise I'll have to brush some off with a little paintbrush, which you have to do sometimes, don't worry. Right, let's use my fingers down here. Right, so that's getting a nice smooth. I'm going to go over this actually. Let's get it all. That's it. Let's get it all nice and covered in pastel. Up here again, it's paper rather than pastel. This darker colour. it's beginning to blend itself better now. Go in with my blender. Use my fingers, there we are. Again, that's got that orange, hasn't it, that comes out a bit more. That's better, and that comes again, it comes across a little bit. I'm going to put a fair bit on because I want that boat to stand out. That's looking a bit better. Now, coming in again with this really dark blue. And that's another dark blue, but it's more mauve. Now, and I can feel that that's all beginning to smooth over the paper, so that's probably got enough pastel on there now. And I like the way it kind of recedes. There's some of this darker, can you see, just it comes up under the boat, and then there's a couple of patches of it. So I think I'm actually going to map in my boat first, because I can paint around it. And your boat is completely mirrored. And this is the hardest bit to do, of course. Looks a bit more like a canoe. Oh, it's all right, I think. Yes, I think that's okay. So I've got my boat. I know where my boat's going there. Not too worried about the ones at the back. But I can work towards this now. Because that gets very dark up there. And then there's this tiny little bit of light just under it. That's not dark enough. So I'm going to find the colour. Here we are. This was the colour I was using. And this actually has a bit of this sort of effect now. On this side is a lot more in shadow. I'm not worried about if I paint over the boat. It's just there's for guidance. That's better, I think. We're beginning to build up a bit of complexity at the front. See how this grey looks. Yes, this is quite nice. We're putting a little bit of light on. Okay, so I'm just going to check my phone. Doesn't time go quickly? Right, Dorothy. The orange reflection looks lighter to me than the orange in the sky. So no, the reflection, it should be darker. And in actual fact, it's darker here, it is darker here, but this is generally darker than that, and that's the whole reflection. This bit won't be reflected down here because it's the land's in the way. So it wouldn't be reflected here. You've got all these clouds and the land. I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense if you're still there? Okay, I'm going to try and just move the camera down a touch so you can see the bottom, but you're not far off. I just don't want to take myself out of live again. There we are. Okay, yeah, so you weren't missing much at the bottom at all. Now, this is such fun, isn't it? I like this grey up here. I think that's a lovely colour. And I'm going to bring it down and then I will go over it with some little orange light bits. And it kind of comes across here. I keep saying I'm not going to blend anymore and then I keep blending. This is much darker. So I'm going to come in with this much darker grey. It's mixing with the colour underneath now, I'm lightening it up, but we'll keep going. Very, very light touch for this. Okay, we are getting there. There is a little bit of a darker reflection in here. Oh, that looks nice, doesn't it? And I'm going to go up now and start back at my sky, putting in some lighter bits. I want some of that very, very pale, it's a sort of a greeny. That's too dark. That's no. Do you know, there's nothing worse than knowing the exact colour you want and not being able to find it. There we are. It's not quite white, it's a very, very, very pale mint. And I'm going to bring some more of this blue down to mix with that so it will just fade itself really. Got some streaks in there, don't worry about it. I've got some paper showing through up here, so I'm going to go back in what we did down here. I'm going to do a bit more at the top. So I did have this quite dark purple. I'm going in with this mid blue here. I think that's too light. So let's go back in with the very dark one that I used down here. That's better. That's it. That gives that feeling of that sky looming. And then I need to marry that into each other a bit more. So I'm going to come in with this. Fade that out a bit more. It's looking better, I think. I want a bit of this blue reflected down here, I think. That might be too light. That's quite good. It's like a really dark ultramarine. It's quite a purpley blue. Probably overdone that. Let's have a look. And how do you ever get to a point where you feel you've decided you've done enough and that's the end? That's the hardest thing. I've got a lot of pastel on here. You can see it all slipping around now. But I quite like that effect. I like the sky. I will put these lighter bits, there'll be a mix of putting dark and light in there to get that looking more not choppy, but textured. Okay. So now I've got quite enough pastel on my paper. That is kind of just scumbling and slipping, and I want to fade out those ripples the further away so they'll only really show nearer the boat. I'm not sure my boat's big enough, but I can make it bigger when I put it in. So I'm going back in with some of this grey. I want a sharp edge. I don't seem to have one. Let's try. There we are. That's better. Just trying to blend that a little bit. Really, really, really gentle. And then this lovely, lovely light mauve. Trying to keep it horizontal. Come down, we've got some of these little light areas, really gently just brushing it so it blends rather than makes distinct marks. And I want to blend this a bit as well. Oops, she says. Oops. No problem. Right, I think we're getting there. There's a little bit of lighter colour there, and I can use probably something like this because it is so dark. Yeah, look. So it looks like the sun's coming up and catching it there. Right, I'm going to put my boat in and then I will be able to see what I think of the rest of it. Just checking if there's any more chat. Okay, thanks Dorothy. Now, I'm going to try putting my boat in with this really, really, really dark purple. And I will probably use the pencil to tighten it up. I'm going to use a cotton bud just to blend that a bit. And then my pencil. See, the black pencil is not as dark as the purple, which is weird. But I think I'm okay with that. And just under there, there's a tiny little bit of light as well. I've left a little bit in, but it's not quite as obvious as I'd like it to be. Oh, bugger. It's better. And that also comes out a bit like that. That's better, I think. Right, I'm going to have a break. I'm going to go away, make a cup of tea. Let's have 10 minutes and then I'm going to come back. It looks like I'm not sure I've got that much more to do on it, but I need to take my eyes away from it because you just go blind staring at it for too long. So I'm going to make a cup of tea and come back in a little bit. Or if you're on catch up, you can just fast forward. See you in a bit. go again. So I've had a look. I'm going to photograph my picture because I'm not sure the boat's big enough. And I find it always helps to photograph your work and then have another look at it. I think I might make it just a little bit bigger. Just a tad. I'm going to use the dark blue because it's got a better edge on it. Even that, I think, looks better. It's just a fraction bigger. Yep. Again. I don't want to get too pernickety, but it's got to look like a boat. At the moment, I'm just making a mess. Oh. Now then. Okay. I think that's all right. I've got little bits of fluff there. Oh, so fragile, isn't it? Just to crisp up the edge. Fiddle-dee-dee. Okay. Clean my pastel. This is the lighter one. Fade it out up there. So it looks like it's gradually coming forward. So I think my water is probably okay, but I'm going to carry on, finish the sky, and then I might come back and go, oh, but that needs doing. And I've still got my little boats to put in. So let's have a look back at my... The sky is darker in this, but I quite like that, although I may just try. In fact, I'm going to put some clouds on with this lovely mauve. And they look rubbish at the moment, but bear with me because I'm going to blend these. So now, question is fingers or tools? Tools, I think. Yeah. I don't want it too obvious. And in fact, that's quite a that colour comes quite a way down, doesn't it? So I'm going to bring it across here and see what happens. Much more. And that's, I need to merge that a bit into the background. So I'm going to go back in, which colour? Yeah, this one. Because that kind of fades it. And I can, or if I overdo it, I can just put the lighter ones back in. I'm not too worried. And I think I want this to look a little, I don't want that light colour to go all the way off the page. I'm going to regret doing that, aren't I? But let's see, let's keep going. Don't want it stripy. Okay, no, I think that's getting there. Because then I can come in, these are quite dark, these quite dark grey clouds here. I'm going to put a bit more of that light in. Light, there we are. And that should just blend itself. Lovely, yeah. Then that is quite a dark grey. Yeah, I like that. Just smooth that into the purple. Now I've got some of these really quite dramatic clouds here. And that cloud is actually, I think, this sort of colour. It's more of a, I'll try it and we'll see. If we don't like it, you know what happens. Some of these as well, some warmer clouds up here. That's actually, so this goes into quite a dark grey. Okay, what do we think? I'm going to step away a bit and have a sip of tea, see what I think. Up here I've got this, it looks a bit like a wedge, so try just blending that a little bit more. Try fingers. All right, now I think that sky's too busy, so I am going to go back in and blend this because I want this to look a lot more uniform. So the clouds That's better, I think. Just lighten this up a fraction where a bit more sun, a little bit more light coming through. There we are. Now, that's looking a bit dirty over here. Well, it is a bit dirty on the painting. So I'm going to carry that over. Ooh, what's this? Horror. No, that's all right. Come back in with some of this. Don't blend it this time. Light lemon. This warmer, slightly warmer one. Very light touch. Now I'm going to stand up and have a look at that. Is there any comments? Anyone still with me? Right, let's have a look. I think that might be all right actually for the sky. Let's have a look, step away from it. Yeah, do you know, I think we're nearly done. I think we are very nearly done. It's difficult to explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, but it just really is the final touches for me. Just darken that a little bit up. This is that light mauve. I don't know if it's going to help. Let's see. Get rid of you. I think blend out my horizon a bit more. I actually think, I mean, you can actually get away with putting in an even darker orange here if you wanted. Use that middle orange just to merge these. Right, And I'd like this down here. I might just have just a fraction more, so that's that dark teal. Yeah, just ties it in a bit more with the sky. Looks like the light's coming down on it. So all that's left for me to do is put my little boats in, which is always easier said than done. And I might, if I can find one, just do a pencil highlight there, if I've got one sharp enough at the moment. Right, it needs to be the pastel, because the pastel has the luminosity. Oh. Just when you think it's all going so well, fear not. We just go back in. And this time, Julie, don't fiddle. Right, the little boats, and they literally are just a mark, she says. Some tea first. I'm not even going to try with a pencil. I'm just going to go straight in and a mark. And a very, very and I am going to, no I'm not, because I just want this little one here as well. And there were a couple, which I don't have to put in, but there we are. I think I'm going to call that done, she says. done. Thank you for joining me, if anyone stayed on to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. And I can't wait to see yours.